Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a seriously fascinating chapter in history, and we're going to try to solve a massive historical puzzle. You see, we're looking at how a gigantic ancient Indian empire totally transformed into this vibrant, interconnected network of brand new kingdoms. It's an incredible story, moving from the collapse of a huge empire into a period of just profound cultural and economic flourishing. Let's get into it. So, our source material actually kicks things off with two really curious characters, Vavisha and Dhruv. They've just wrapped up this journey exploring the Maurya Empire, and honestly, they're itching for another adventure. By tapping into the power of Itihasa, or history, they suddenly land in a completely new period. All around them is this incredibly diverse collection of art pieces that clearly belong to multiple distinct kingdoms, not just one giant empire anymore. It's the perfect setup for the exploratory journey we're about to take today. All right, here is the roadmap for our journey. We'll start with the fall of an empire, check out the age of reorganization, look at Shunga art and culture, witness the rise of the Satavahanas, explore the southern kingdoms and trade, and finally, invasions from the northwest. Section 1. Fall of an Empire. To really wrap our heads around this new era, we have to look at the inciting incident that completely shattered the political landscape. And that brings us to 1850 BCE. Now, we actually know very little about Emperor Ashoka's successors, but the historical consensus zeroes in on this crucial year. This is the moment when the very last Maurya emperor was assassinated by his own commander-in-chief, Pushyamitra Shunga. I mean, just imagine the shockwaves. Barely half a century after Ashoka's massive reign, the whole empire just suddenly breaks apart. Out of the dust, dozens of smaller kingdoms popped up all across the subcontinent, many of which were actually just tributary states that used to serve the Maurya overlords. Section 2. The Age of Reorganization. So what actually happens after a monumental collapse like that? Well, scholars use a very specific term for what comes next, the Age of Reorganization. I really want you to note this definition because it totally reframes how we look at this chapter. This wasn't some chaotic dark age of decline. Not at all. Instead, the existing regions were dynamically reorganized into completely new kingdoms, and they were constantly competing to consolidate power. The map of India was essentially being redrawn, and because of that, the everyday lives of its people were changing dramatically too. And looking at this timeline, you can see we're exploring a pretty vast stretch of history. This era of reorganization isn't just a blip, it covers a long period, kicking off roughly at the start of the 2nd century BCE and stretching all the way to the end of the 3rd century CE. Over the course of these centuries, key individuals, competing kingdoms, and some massive cultural shifts completely redefined the entire subcontinent. Section 3. Shunga Art and Culture. You might be wondering, how do we actually know what life was like back then? Well, our absolute best clues come from the incredible artifacts they left behind. And these two pieces brilliantly illustrate that point. On one side, check out this incredibly delicate, intricately carved ivory comb. It's a highly personal, everyday item, but it really shows off the fine craftsmanship and aesthetic values of the Shunga period. On the other side, we have this grand, very public panel from the Barhud Stupa. Side by side, these artifacts give us a peek into everything, from the quiet private routines of individuals to the grand public storytelling and religious devotion of the era. Now I want you to put your historian's hat on for just a second. Look closely at the figures in those Barhut Stupa panels. What exactly are they doing? Can you guess what their professions might be? The clothes they're wearing, the actions they're captured in? All of this serves as direct visual evidence of ancient society. By stepping up as historical detectives, we can actually decode these carvings to figure out the real, everyday lives of people who walked the earth thousands of years ago. Pretty amazing, right? Section 4. Rise of the Satavahanas. Okay, let's shift our geographical tour a bit further south now, heading toward the Deccan region. We're going to explore a really fascinating political power that rose up during this time, the Satavahanas. And right away, we find this fantastic historical detail that highlights a major cultural shift. In the Satavahanas tradition, princes were actually often named after their mothers. For example, the incredibly famous ruler Gautamiputra Satakarni literally took his name from his mother Gautami Balashri. This unique matrilineal naming tradition is a sharp, really interesting contrast to so many of the fiercely patriarchal empires that came before and after them. And let me tell you, Gautami Balashri wasn't just a name on a royal family tree. She was an absolute force. She was a super powerful queen who actively shaped her kingdom. We know she donated land to Buddhist monks, and she even commissioned a highly important inscription carved right into the stone in Nashik. This tangible evidence proves that women in this reorganized society absolutely could and did wield immense political power and religious influence. Section 5. Southern Kingdoms and Trade. Continuing our journey even further south, we run into powerful dynasties like the Pandyas and the Cheras. Down here, we can actually see how all this political fragmentation led directly to flourishing, globally connected economies. Just look at the visual evidence of trade. On one side, check out that Saravahana Uin. It literally features a multi-masted ship, complete with rigging and little wavy lines underneath for the ocean. And next to it, we have distinct coins from the Chera kings. Guys, these motifs aren't just decorative. They are rock-solid proof that these southern kingdoms were massive maritime trading powerhouses, reaching way beyond the shores of the Indian subcontinent. The Pandyas, in particular, were practically world-renowned for their pearls, which kind of makes you wonder, why were these pearls considered such a vital, highly sought-after article of trade back then? Well, it connects directly to our modern understanding of luxury goods and early globalization. The local kings actively encouraged all different schools of thought and aggressively promoted trade. And that strategy, it brought immense wealth and incredible international connections right to their front door. Section 6. Invasions from the Northwest. Now, while the South was experiencing this incredible maritime boom, the North was dealing with entirely new arrivals. Remember how we talked about that massive Maurya Empire breaking apart? Well, one of the biggest consequences of that was a severely weakened northwestern frontier. Basically, this regional vulnerability left the door wide open for new invaders from outside the subcontinent. We're talking about groups like the Indo-Greeks and Indo-Scythians. They moved right in and took control of various northwestern, northern, and central regions. But honestly, here is the absolute most fascinating part of this whole age of reorganization. These invaders didn't just conquer the land and stay in their own separate bubbles. They actually interacted and mixed with the local populations. So the big question we're left with to wrap up this chapter is this. How did these foreign invaders eventually assimilate into Indian society? And how did they contribute to a lasting cultural confluence? It's just a powerful reminder that ancient globalization and cultural blending created a rich tapestry of history, and we can literally still feel the echoes of that in our own interconnected world today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep exploring.